I just switched with the other week, so I'm glad I remember this is the right week to talk about this.
Me too. So,
Yes.
hi. This is WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, radio and TV podcast #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine. We're back again.
I know. And we were chatting just a minute before we went live about this interesting topic. It's the difference between caution and fear of commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll be one of those topics where there'll be so many nuances and some big things definitely between the way men and women feel about their fear and caution about commitment, and then what we think the other person's thinking about fear and caution.
Absolutely.
Because we women try to guess a lot and we're usually wrong.
A lot of times men don't actually inquire, so they actually become oblivious, just to be clear as well.
I know. Isn't that fun?
Yeah, in a very if you're not in the middle of it, yes, it's fun, but in the middle of it, it's
interesting to watch. It's amusing. I guess that's a better word, amusing.
Mm-hmm.
How we're so convinced, especially women, that we really do know what you're thinking. And we're also convinced that you know what we're thinking. And most of the time, you're pretty confused about what we're thinking.
Or oblivious to it, either way.
Because we haven't told you. We haven't said it out loud.
And the thing is also, just to put this on the table too, women's sensitivity to feeling what other people are experiencing is way more nuanced. No, it's not even that. It's just way more actually happening than for us men, because our natural gift is not to be that sensitive because we're not built that way. Yeah. We develop it if we want to, and that's one thing I've worked on a lot over the years because it's been one of my gifts, or should I say one of my lessons. But for most men, their sensitivity to how a woman's feeling is it's like trying to knock down a wall with a feather.
That's a really good way to put it, because yes, we have the sensitivity, the acuteness, because I think it's what helps make us be moms. You know, when this baby's crying and you're like, I think I know what it is, especially over time, you really get to know they have different cries for wet and tired and hungry. And so we are constantly scanning like an MRI machine, trying to figure out how other people are feeling. And the thing I found lately that I've been talking to women about is, could you turn the machine around? Because there's times when, isn't that a good thing to think about?
Like that,
because I'll ask them, well, how did you feel about what happened? And they have to think about it. And what would you have liked differently? And they have to think about it. And so they start finally laughing at how unfair it is to be mad at you, that you couldn't figure out how they were feeling or what to do about it when they weren't even really clear. And we get so caught up with being upset that we can't think that logical thought, but it is kind of fun to go through that motion with them because they finally go, oh yeah, I guess that's what I was doing or not doing.
Right. No, that's again, one of the other things. So one of the strengths of men is we do have generally, these are all generalities, of course, we're talking about here because there are exceptions to the rule, is that the masculine does have more ability to be logical and step by step, which is one of the gifts, which can be a curse too, but it's one of the gifts, which means that oftentimes when talking with women in the generality of conversation, her lack of logic is very confounding for men.
And that's the thing. If I ask men, how are you feeling then? How are you feeling now? And what did you think about it? They pretty readily have an answer. Mm-hmm. Certainly about how they thought about it, what they thought was going on and what they thought was going on for them, what they were trying to figure out what was going on for the other person. They're usually not confused. They're sometimes confused why they felt or thought that way, but they are more clear about it than often women are. It was such an interesting learning curve when I started paying attention to that so long ago about, oh, we really do process that part of us so differently. So then if you think about the title of this, to get people to even decide, okay, how do you really feel? Because caution and fear really often are based in our emotions, even though
Mhm.
it's helpful if you bring logic into it as well,
Right.
about this first meeting or meeting them again, or what happened with the last person. And it gets so jumbled that they haven't really separated how different caution and fear really can be. I'm so glad that we have this in the title, because people think that when they put up all these barriers and there's all this stuff that is in the way of them even communicating with somebody, that's just them being cautious. I'm just being careful. Oh,
Sure.
look how afraid you really are. And being afraid
Right.
is not bad. We sometimes we don't even react to the things we should be afraid of,
Well, yeah.
but we're not, if we don't put it on a scale and say, here's minor caution to more severe caution that now lends itself to fear to go to his, complete abject terror. We don't do that very well. And I think guys are much can do that easier. What do you
Well, yeah.
think?
Well, because the thing is, for us men, really, the only quote fear that we carry, generally speaking, is a fear of risk to our physical safety, meaning that, fear of death or fear of being attacked. I mean, they say jokingly that truly our fear really should only be around for things that are about survival, like, getting attacked by saber-toothed tigers sort of thing, which we don't see very often nowadays. But the thing is, the fear of commitment piece, which is interesting to use that labeling, it really is an avoidance of commitment, because we have some preconceived notions, experiences, memories of things that didn't go the way we wanted to. So we then compile those into a reason and justification why we shouldn't commit. So that it's not really much necessarily a fear of commitment, it's justification why we won't, really. That's what it comes down to. And yes, I understand in some of that, some people, particularly women, have gone through experiences of abuse or violence or hurt or wounding in some ways, where the fear of commitment is tied to a physical safety issue. But generally speaking, that fear of commitment is really an avoidance of commitment for various reasons. And I can get the
Various
whole thing.
reasons.
Like the thing the thing I talk about in some of my work, even when I was learning recently with the program I'm in, is that a successful commitment can be a clear yes, and it can also be a clear no. But the fear of commitment is kind of something in the fuzzy middle. It's not clear either way, ultimately.
Yeah. And I loved thinking about this from both men and women's perspectives. And the things that I've heard a lot from women is, oh, he just has a fear of commitment. That's why he broke up with me. That's why he won't get close. And I say, okay, well, what do you think? What part of commitment are they afraid of? Because it's not the word, it's
Right.
pieces of it.
Exactly.
And so that's been an interesting conversation, because I hear from men why they've taken steps and they don't take the next one, or what they have to have before they'll take the next one. And most women have never thought about them at all. And one of the things that I've heard from men is, because we women are not always clear about how we're feeling, and we certainly aren't telling you clearly how we're feeling. One of the reasons they don't want to commit, because they're just as serious about committing as women are. They think, oh, men are so flighty about, oh, no. When you've given your heart to someone and you trust them and you've got their back and you're thinking they have your back, I know men are just as devastated. And I've talked to some men that were even more just devastated, because they felt betrayed and they felt lied to and they felt left in the lurch and blindsided, because the woman finally says more directly all the transgressions that have been happening over months or lots of times years, that he's like, but how can I do anything about it now?
Right.
Because it was 6 months ago or 6 years ago. And they don't want to do that again. That's hard on you.
Well, the thing is, for us, commitment. One of the things, well, there's a few reasons why we might have. And once I keep saying fear of commitment, I'm saying my issue with it is not about fear; it's about justification for not. For many cases, and for many men, one of the things we value more than anything else is freedom. One of the things we value is also having the ability to run our own lives, and committing to a relationship as the implication, not necessarily the guarantee, but the implication of giving up some of that. Meaning that we give up our freedom to be in a relationship, which means, first of all, we can't look anywhere else. That's one of the things that we carry as a belief. As I know I did that one. That's a conversation that a man and woman have to have. It's like, it's okay if I still look. Add that one in there as a caveat. The second one, though, is that the thing about commitment is it is an agreement, and keeping that agreement is something that for many people, both men and women, we hold as sacrosanct. So it's that sense that, and I'm not sure it's true for all men, but I say for myself and other men, I know for sure, is that the desire not to commit is because we don't know if this is the real one, the one sort of thing, and we're not willing to, and I keep wanting to avoid the word afraid because I don't want to say afraid. We're not willing to give up the choices that are available in case this isn't the one. That's that's the wiring that we carry, which is so, and it's not caution either in that sense. I think it's really about, and I hate to seem a bit clinical about this, but for a lot of men, it's sort of weighing up the scales, or clarifying what has more value for us, what has more positive points, so to speak, for us. Does that make sense?
Oh, completely. And it's one of the things that Alison Armstrong talks about a lot, is that the worth it quotient. Yeah. And I've had fun teaching this to women, because when men think about using their time, energy, and money, they want to know that they're getting a good return on their investment.
Yes.
And it's not, even though ROI is a big hot button for business, it's also in the masculine, because the women who are more high on their masculine side get this better than the women who have more highly developed feminine side. That you want to see what you're going to get back. And that really hurts women's heads that don't get this, because they think, well, what does that mean? And I said, they need to know that when they're making this commitment to be monogamous with you, that you're going to be the true person that you have said you are. If you've had regular sex, they want regular sex. If you're going to be somebody who's going to be fine with them looking as long as they don't touch, because that was your agreement, then don't change the plans in the middle of the relationship. And that makes it worthy. That makes it worth it to them. So you're constantly, consciously, or I think a lot unconsciously, going through that sorting of, I'm going to give this energy. So you're going to go mow the lawn because your lawn's going to look good. And she's going to say, oh, honey, that made me hot. I can't believe how happy I am that you mowed the grass. That makes it extra worth it to him to do it, that you said thank you, and notice that he was using his energy. Now, women, I wish we were more careful and thoughtful about our energy, but we're so not. We just give it till we're empty and we've used even our reserves, and then we're overwhelmed and exhausted and just mad at everybody. That if we thought about that more, it'd be better. But what we do is we're constantly like, how do I feel about what you did? Did it make me feel cared about? Did it feel like you thought I was important? Did you make a point of doing the thing that I asked you to do? So we're still trading. I'm telling women, we're still trading goods and services. We just do, it looks differently for us. But when we make the commitment and we keep doing it, then the caution, which I think is very appropriate as you're getting to know each other, starts going down, and it will not escalate to the fear. But if you bring all your old fears of, oh, did he think he was me? Do I think maybe he was doing that old thing that somebody else did that hurt my feelings? It starts snowballing into fear. And who's going to make a commitment when you're afraid? I mean, that just is anti-love for sure. Certainly anti-sex for sure.
It definitely is not a turn on for sure.
No, for either side.
No, but one thing I want to go back to about the thing about mowing the lawn. That was one of those things that I think is great, is that because we, as you said before, it's like for us men, there is a return on the investment type idea, and when we know that things we do will make our partner hot, we will keep doing those things because we know there's a payoff for us. It's like, it's transactional. It's not about the passion and the feelings. No, we know there's a reward for doing this. And I know it's exposing a lot of people's like, oh damn, we've been outed. It's like, it's the truth. We do find this value this way because it really works, and it's not a bad thing. It's just like, no, play to your strengths. And that's
we
the
both
thing
keep
about
outing men and women. We're so funny.
oh, we're so bad about this. Yeah. we're so nasty, telling the truth. No. So the thing about, I want to speak to the caution piece for a second, is that in relationship, and I know it's true for women, especially because a lot of women I've worked with had to go through experience, that women have been wounded and hurt in different ways that men don't experience. It can be sexual abuse, it can be physical abuse, it can be emotional abuse, although that can work both sides, especially. But certain ways where women have carried hurt feelings, very experienced pain and suffering from past relationships. So their caution, and again, not fear of commitment necessarily, but caution about entering into a commitment can be very strong because they really want to check out all the symptoms, the signs, the clues that this guy is not like the last one or like the last three. This guy will be safe and respectful, because one of the biggest gifts a man can give to a woman is a sense of safety. And that caution can be assuaged or can be satisfied, if that's the right word, by providing that sense of safety and trust, which is really what a woman wants from a man more than anything else.
And a high priority to men is to be trusted.
Mm-hmm.
So when we learn how to navigate, well, what are the things that I've had a problem with in the past, things that have hurt me, things that have made me afraid, things that have made me more cautious. And then you know how to address it with the next person. And the fine line is, it's hard for the other person to go, but I'm not that other person. So you don't say it that way, but you can say,
gosh, you shouldn't.
Oh yeah. Oh, I tell people, please don't have that exact conversation, because it's really hard on both of you. You aren't going to get the answer you're looking for. No. But to say, this is a challenge I have had in my life where I've trusted too soon, or I've moved too fast, or I didn't ask the right questions, and I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. So this is why I'm doing this. And the guy's like, let me see if I can step up and be that. Let me see if I can answer that. Let's see if I can be man enough for that. They don't feel like they're starting out with a negative, which I hear men complain about all the time. I am not your ex. I am not your late spouse. I'm me. Please accept me as me. So if you couch it as, okay, let me tell you about me. Here's the things that I have a challenge with.
Right.
And you don't even have to say why. Men don't, we'll ask why. We'll ask why until you're tired of talking about it. Men don't often ask, they'll ask why because we keep talking about it, like, okay, tell me why. You just want to know, how do I not do that? How do I get a different reaction from you? So if we say, this is the challenge I have, and this is what you can do to help me with that, you're like, okay.
So much easier.
I'm on it.
Right. Mission accomplished. Challenge accepted.
Yes. You step. I mean, if you're interested in us, you're going to step up. Okay, now what is it you need me to do? Okay, did I do it? And what's the next thing you need me to do? Did I do that? Now, there has to be lots of rewards. And finally, an ending, I'm done. This is great. You've done all the things. I'm feeling so much better. I'm feeling really comfortable with you. Because that's the other thing I've learned about men is it takes a lot more for you to give up. It really does. What you put up with from us is astounding. Astounding. You'll finally give up for the sole reason of, I'm never going to make her happy. Right. I am never going to be enough. That is such the major reason, the majority of reason men go, I'm out. It's not what we're doing as women, because they take it personally that they're not making us, you're not making us happy. And so if you're like, oh, I've tried everything. I don't know what's left. I guess I'm just not the right person. And when women hear that, they're like, oh, really? I go, yeah, you're making it impossible. And if it is impossible, please tell him so he can go find somebody that he could satisfy, because that can happen. I'm not making light of that. But if you
Right.
really like him and you really see potential, then help him succeed.
Hmm.
Yeah. Look at you frowning. I know that this happens to men so often. It's sad.
Well, because I've also experienced it too, so I know very much from that place.
Mm.
It is one of those things that I think for all of us, both genders, the whole point, and we both Sophie and us, and Armstrong and John Gray and other people too. We know that it's clear that men and women, in a lot of ways, are from different planets. That we do communicate differently and experience things differently and look for different results. So to break that down in this context about having that avoidance of commitment, I keep changing it from fear to avoidance. Fear of commitment is so not accurate in the sense. There may be fear about the commitment, but it's not fear of commitment.
Yeah.
And the cautionary experience and being unwilling necessarily to commit into a relationship because there's certain things we have presupposed is the recognition is that we all have our own reasons, and to honor those and to understand what's going on. And this is the other part is that caution and avoidance of relationship, which is almost like avoidant attachment style in a way, but the avoidance of relationship because we're not willing to trust, we're not ready to jump in, we don't feel comfortable committing. It's rarely that we have a conversation about that with the prospective partner. We basically, one of the partners that will come up for them, and they'll find excuse to say, I'm not interested, and walk away. So what could be the most perfect relationship available with that person is avoided, no, avoid is the wrong word, has been cut off because of the stuff that's inside the person. So if any of you are listening to this or watching this and feeling this is something resonant for you, if you find this is happening more than once, where you are finding yourself pulling back, not committing, but not being willing to commit, having the avoidance of commitment, as I mentioned, or just being cautious about dating. If you really want to have a relationship and you are in the dating pool and you're not doing anything about it, you're going to keep repeating the same experiences. I won't say mistakes, but experiences. If you want to do something different, that's why we're talking about this here, but definitely why you want to get help. So I'm just giving an early promotion for each of our services, just saying, get the help. Yeah. But to get back on topic, that was a quick promo there. Yeah. We'll get back on topic for a second also. The idea about of caution isn't a bad thing. It's like when you're driving unknown paths, unknown roads, especially before their GPS, you'd be looking out for road signs. You'd be driving cautiously. You'd be looking for indications and checking where you're going, make sure you're navigating properly. That is still true for dating, I believe. And even nowadays, with all the stuff we can find out about each other, being cautious is a smart move, as in being aware and present in the moment, because that's really what being cautious is about. Mm-hmm. That for me is in a way of being prepared to find out what this person's about before you commit to anything beyond that. Which to me is a very smart approach for men and for women.
Taking little steps at a time rather than diving in without seeing, is there deep enough water in the pool? Has the water been treated properly that you're not going to catch something horrible when you jump in? I mean, really finding out about this person, and are you a match in so many of the really important ways? I mean, that's what dating is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be jumping into a relationship. It's supposed to be getting to know the other person and seeing, how are you feeling as this is going on? How do they seem to be? Checking in with them. How are we doing? How's this going? So that the cautious that's really necessary, I think, never gets to the fear or the avoidance, because there's no need to. You'll know along the way, oh yeah, no, I guess we could be friends, or no, I can't even be with you because we're too different. Before you jump in, because that's often why people have had these big barriers that go up and the big guards around their heart, is that they've jumped too quickly without really finding out, are we a match emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, on all those levels? I think it's essential to use caution. I'm all for caution. I think taking steps, I'm the pokey person. I take forever to do anything. And the other thing I wanted to address that you mentioned is the independence, because women in their past have probably, because they didn't know how to do it differently, gave up, is what they use the words all the time. They gave up themselves in the relationship. They lost themselves. They lost who they were.
Yes.
And so they're like, well, I don't want to do that again. And if you don't know how to avoid something, of course you're going to be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how to not have it happen again, because there are ways to have that not happen again. Then you're going to go, well, I'm not going to do the whole thing. But relationships don't require, healthy ones with another healthy person, don't require you to ever give up your whole self, ever.
Right.
Typically, as you're getting to this get to know phase, you're like, oh, tell me more. I want to know more about you. Yeah. Oh, there's that too. Wow. That's not my way, but I find it fascinating. Wow. I'm learning more things. I never thought about it. I mean, that has been my most successful relationships, when you keep building on the things that are the same and the things that aren't the same, but are intriguing, that you don't lose your independence, because the other person will almost keep feeding it. You keep feeding each other's stay independent because I like this about you.
Right.
So when you make a conscious effort to stay your authentic self, how many times have we said that? You won't give up your independence now of who you are. Of course, you give up the independence of, if you have a monogamous relationship, to be sexually with another person. Your time might be allotted different because now you're taking the other person into consideration. There's that, but there's not losing yourself. I mean, that's the words they've used. So I'm going to continue using those words, that part of what they thought was their independence that they lost, it's unnecessary. It doesn't keep the relationship fresh and alive, because if you're not staying your inquisitive, wanting to learn new things, wanting to improve yourself, then what is there for the relationship? I mean, the people I know, I've cited the 3 couples that I know really well. My writing partners, they're now just celebrated their 59th wedding anniversary. And I told you, when she and I went driving, that right before COVID happened, we were gone for a week, and every day they had this interesting conversation I got to be privy to, because I was sitting in the next bed, about these people who had been married for such a long time. They were still interested in each other's day. And what did you think about what I just saw? And, oh, you did that too. And I'm like, wow, yeah, that's my goal. If I'd had a husband that lived longer than 5 years, I think I would have kept that, but it certainly was for the 5 years.
Indeed.
And so my brother and sister-in-law just celebrated theirs, 46, I think. And they are fascinated with each other. They're each other's favorite person, and they have all these outside interests, but they always bring it back to the marriage. And so these are not people that have lost themselves in their marriages or in their relationships. And look at the outcome. So if you need to make a personal commitment to be with somebody that doesn't require that, and that you're not tempted, because sometimes the other person's not asking, but you just do it. Because I've talked to a number of women who go, oh yeah, I guess I did it to myself. And you don't want that as a guy. You don't want us to turn into some dish rag person.
So
that was a really lot of things I said, huh?
I know. I just, because the last piece just went, oh, okay. So I absolutely agree with you, but first of all, but I just want to say that looking back at my parents' generation, that wasn't the case, where that was the equally interested type thing. It was definitely where the woman became the passive partner in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And I've shared on the broadcast before about the way we've evolved through the sexual revolution and the transformation women have had through independence and everything else too. And the idea about what you said, those relationships, I think is fascinating and wonderful and absolutely affirmative. And I would agree with it totally, where the two partners are independent, yet yet are interdependent with each other. So they bring things to the conversation, because frankly, I would say relationships get really tedious and boring if you don't have that additive, new information, new ideas brought into the relationship all the time. But that requires both people being, on some levels, equal, but certainly creative and doing their own thing, as you're saying, on the outside world. That choice point, for me, is underpinned by trust, which we talked about earlier. And trust is the solvent that dissolves caution, for want of a better word.
I like that.
And so this whole piece really is talking about the way of having relationships. And one of the fundamental cornerstones of a relationship is having trust. And yes, some people would be cautious about being in a relationship until they discover if they can trust well, both their partner, but also trust themselves with their partner, because there's another piece of the conversation. So I want to make sure we cover that in there as well. Because trust in that intimacy, because part of monogamy, if that's what your preference is built upon trust. Because if you can't trust your partner to be loyal to you, then where's the monogamy going to go? It's out the window. So having trust for both partners, for each other and for themselves, because that's a big piece, as I said, is requirement for passing the barrier of caution to actually move into a relationship, intimacy and commitment, which is what a relationship really built upon. And part of what I'm saying is trust of themselves is that, as I said way back earlier in the conversation, how men have to know they can choose into this relationship fully and not be thinking about, can I keep looking around? They got to trust that they can get what they want from this one partner, which is a big piece.
Big, huge piece. I mean, how many people have we heard say, we're just roommates?
Mm-hmm.
We kind of ships passing in the night. We just, we kind of live in the same house. How sad is that? Right. And depending on who you talk to, they're kind of busy pointing their finger at the other person. And I go, yeah, but there's always 3 fingers pointing back.
Indeed.
And so let's see, if you want, if we could do something to make this get back. I mean, did you love each other once? Did you have passion for each other? Did you find the other person interesting ever? Or decide, is this how you want to, as Dr. Laura says, is this how you want to live until you're dead? Maybe not. So then do you need to leave? Because often people are afraid to leave as much as they are afraid to get into a committed relationship.
Indeed.
Not what the topic is really, but it is kind of sort of, because staying out of fear of being alone, or what do people think, is not loving. It's not loving yourself. It's certainly not loving the other person. So often I can find the seeds of the fear that they had before they even got into the relationship that are now have blossomed into this fear that keeps them stuck in a place that they're not happy. You're nodding. You've seen this before too, huh?
Yes.
So why not address it ahead of time? Let's pull some weeds before we get into it.
Well, one of the things that come up, and I just want to flip the script in this one too, because that's the thing you said with the commitment, the key is absolutely one of the things people have when they stay in a relationship too long is a lack of commitment to themselves, because they're more afraid of being single. Perhaps they're more unwilling to be single and with themselves, because that's that. I mean, it's a lot of my work is working with singles to really find fulfillment as themselves, as whole people, before they even look for a relationship, which is kind of what this is a prelude for, or that's the prelude for this. But a lot of times people are in a relationship, like as you said, they stay longer than they are, in quotes, supposed to, because they are perhaps not willing to commit to their own freedom, commit to their own ownership of their life as an individual person, and saying that I deserve different, better, separate from this relationship, and committing to that. So the fear of commitment in this conversation, I said it's the avoidance of commitment is true both on the front end of a relationship, but also on the back end as well. That oftentimes there is a commitment phobia that comes up. Okay, let me another piece came. I was going to flip the other way as well. So keep showing different ways. Is the lack of commitment to themselves to leave the relationship. Also, sometimes the lack of commitment to stay in the relationship. Sometimes the commitment fades away because the person's been in a relationship for a while and they get bored, distracted, or they don't find fulfillment in it. And rather than talk about it with their partner and work out the kinks, see if there's something they can do with it, they just won't commit to that. That's another part of our relationship. The thing about saying I do has a lot of weight to it. Not necessarily to death do us part, but certainly through the journey that life can bring in a relationship. So, are you not willing to commit to the possibility of this incredible relationship beyond what you can see and beyond which you may be comfortable with? So there's 3 different options for commitment now.
There you go. And one of the things that women often say, and men more lately, when they've left a hard relationship, something that wasn't working, they go, I'm going to work on myself. That's really good. You and I are big fans of that. You and I are happy to coach people that way. We do it every day because that's the way my company name came from. Learn to be the perfect catch first, and then you'll attract them.
Exactly.
And we forget to work on ourselves in conjunction with our partner when we're in a relationship.
Yep.
They go, oh, I didn't think about it that way. I go, I know. And I'm a huge proponent. I've said it lots that if you got up every morning and said, each of you equally, what could I do today to make my partner happy? What could I do that they would really like? What could I say or do or be that they would think is cool?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, it's pleasing you too. That's where people start, especially women, they lose themselves because they have kept sacrificing and giving too much. And but a good guy doesn't want that. Trust me, they don't. You don't want us to give up ourselves. You
No.
kind of liked us how we were when you met us, and you'd like us to. That's the thing. You like, I would like women not to change, and they keep doing that. And we go, I want men to change, and they don't. It's so good. Such a frustrating conundrum, right?
Oh yeah,
Because it's
absolutely.
so true. I know you have to laugh because it's so true.
It is so true. Yeah, the wiring is so funny to the opposites we have.
I know. But if you go, oh, I'm doing that thing that women do, or I'm doing that thing that men do, or I'm doing that thing that drives men crazy or women crazy, how do I adjust that? And how do we have a sense of humor about it? Because that's the other thing. It's really kind of hard to be afraid if you're laughing.
That's
If you
true
can
indeed.
make a joke of it with the other person and they get it and they're
Yes.
willing to go, oh yeah, I guess I did that, or oh yeah, I misunderstood that like completely, then you know that you're on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
To Because if something happens and you go, wow, that made me scared, and you say it out loud and the other person goes, really? Oh wow. Like I've said not for a while that my husband was really into practical jokes, and he told me that kind of soon when we were dating, which was a good thing because I said, never, ever, ever. I don't think there's anything funny about them. I'll get my feelings hurt. I'll get mad. You'll be so sorry. So they
Yep.
never did. They'd tell me about the things the pranks they played on each other, but I said, this is a huge sensitive thing to me. You just need to know. And I get that this is really important to you. So tell me all your stuff, but never. And they never did. They all had these conversations. No, don't do that to Christy. Because I know this about me. I have all these
Right.
sensitive feelings about stuff. But that's not a bad thing. It doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me a much happier person to be around if you don't do a practical joke on me.
Yeah. That's it's like learning those things up front is such a key thing. Of course, in your case, you're saying that you actually said, even though that is a deal breaker, you're still going to go ahead.
Yes. But he knew better. It never happened in all
That's
the
the thing.
time we did with each other.
But that's the thing, though. It's having a conversation. It's like, this works, this doesn't work. Can we work with that? And that's the thing, is finding out what the other person can accommodate, works for them, it does work for them, that you can be willing to work too. That's part of the conversation to have before you commit to a relationship, really, when you start things out. So before you commit, this is going to work. I mean, that's the other part about this commitment piece. Is sometimes people commit without looking. I mean, people go and buy cars without getting all the details before they walk up, pay for the money and drive off the lot. Same is true relationships. People will dive into a relationship because they've made up a picture in their head of what the relationship might be, but the person hasn't verified that yet. So before you commit, and definitely throw caution to the winds, it's like having due diligence in a way. When you do your research for a new car, a new computer, a new house, whatever you're looking for, you ideally do have due diligence. You do research, you check things out. When you're dating, get to know the person, find out what their values are, what they're about, what their choices are, where their boundaries are, so there's a fit. Because again, this whole thing about caution and this avoidance of commitment is normally predicated on things we carry inside ourselves, that we don't know the truth. Well, if you don't ask questions, you won't find out the truth about the other person.
Yeah.
So
Oh, thank you, Bonnie. She likes your comment, Barry.
either one, I'm not sure. There's sometimes a time delay, but certainly in this context, I'm passionate about people really getting to the point where they choose relationship. Let me use the word intentionally, consciously, like they're bringing themselves into a relationship without running a fantasy or a false belief, or basing their commitment to the relationship purely on one aspect because the person has lots of money, or they look a certain way, or they live in a certain area. It's like, it's got to be more than that. So having the willingness to find out about your prospective partner before you're already signed off on it is a good idea, because then you know you're committing to the right thing or walking away from it.
Yep. Oh yeah, questions and verifying. And
Hmm.
then you see is what they said, what they do.
Yes, indeed.
If they say, okay, I see that my big thing is I love good morning texts and good night texts. Those
Hmm.
make me feel cared about. A call during the day is like a bonus. But I
Right.
really need the text every day. Or say you can't. I'm okay with that too. If you let me know ahead of time, you can't because you're going to be on a plane or something. And so then I wait and I see. And if they can't, what happened? I don't automatically get mad or upset. I used to, but I learned better. Now I just go, what happened? Just curious. And overslept, rushed out the door. I mean, there's good reasons, but it
Hmm.
can't keep happening. When I have
Right.
said this is really, and if you say, gosh, I could never, ever, ever, how would you feel about that? I go, because you do an afternoon and an evening then. If I really am liking you, I'm willing. I still want to. What do you think about that? Because I had one guy that we did that. He said, I can often in the morning, but then, oh, and he also said, I think it'd be really great if you texted me once, at least once during the week in the morning. I went, okay. So I would sometimes do it on Monday because then I knew he'd do it the rest of the week. And then sometimes I'd wait till Wednesday or Thursday. He goes, I see what you're doing, and it's fine. We had a similar sense of humor, and it was kind of fun because we had talked about how people had let us down in the past and what those things had been entailed. So we were
Hmm.
doing this little testing thing, which was kind of fun. It was like this little cha-cha back and forth.
But it's building trust, which is great.
Yeah, yeah, it was. They ended up having a child come live with them, and I said, I can't do that. I just can't do that. I already did that. I can't do that.
Right.
But it was fun to have this practice with somebody who I went, yeah, I can ask for what I want and I can negotiate down a little, but I will not give it up because this is really important to me. And he really worked at it. It was fun. It was a really fun little thing that happened for a few months. It was nice. So it hadn't become a big deal thing. I'm not sure I would have absolutely said no about a kid, but it's so hard, kind of a hard no for me of minor children living in the house. So, but it was fun. I think he came in my life that I could go, oh yeah, reminding myself how important this is to me and that I'm
Hmm.
going to ask for it and say, please give it to me and let me know what you can do about it. So when we start building up too much caution and too much fear, it's when we don't get our needs met, either people, and we don't
Correct.
feel like the other person really cares or is having our back. And so checking in, gosh, did I ask too much? Is it something you can't do? Okay, maybe we're not a match. Or maybe I need to change my expectations a little. What else could I get instead of that? I'm okay negotiating stuff. But that's the part where people start getting so cautious and so fearful when they haven't even expressed what it is they need and want. And to see, could you do that for me? What do you think?
Yeah, it's boy. I'm just enjoying listening to the story because I've heard this. You've said the story about the texting piece, and that's another thing. A lot of these things that we do with new people is to find out if we can trust them by in a way testing them to a degree. So what you're talking about with the texting is kind of that idea. Yet it's not a thing where you're going to test them like to have them walk through fire, but it's still a level of just going and say, does this person listen to what I asked for, and do they do that? So I can trust them. Because again, it's back to the thing of interviewing them, so to speak. Because really, you are interviewing for a job that's the most important job perhaps in the world, which is relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So if you consider it that way, you might take the approach with a certain level of gravitas and willingness to find out more. So then because back to the title, caution for a second. Oftentimes, caution can be a block to moving forward, but oftentimes caution can be a wisdom approach to say, let me just check things out before I risk my heart or my emotions or myself to this relationship till I know for sure it's where I want to play. Then caution is being used for good, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to we're just scared to touch anything because you're being a scaredy cat. But the
Yep.
same, and so that whole thing about avoidance of commitment, it's not even oftentimes because people do the due diligence. They just simply just go, I'm not committing. I just don't want to do it. It's like, why don't you find out first? Do the research, do your due diligence, have the quote interview to find out if the person really is who they say they are. And then, yes, test and verify, as you said, like ask questions and verify that this person matches what they say they're going to do. Because that is what, frankly, ideally a relationship is based upon is verification, trust, and absolute knowing that you can depend on the other person for who they are and what they said they're going to be and do.
Yes. And I love that you even said interviewing, because it is kind of, I mean, I tell people nobody wants to feel interviewed or interrogated. But one of the things my niece is married to a guy that's the kind of places he goes into, you have to leave your cell phone outside, you have to have your retina scan to get in. I mean, there's all these verifying things that happen before he has access to go into the inner sanctum of these places. And I go, well, your heart's this very precious thing. And that's really the job you're seeing. Is this person the kind of person that you want to have access to your heart? Are you the kind of person that they want to allow to have access? I mean, it's the same kind of verifying, the same kind of vetting, that it doesn't necessarily, if it's a no, mean they're a bad person. It just means I'm fine going to the movies with you or out to dinner with you, but you're not the kind of person that I'm going to let have access to my heart. That really takes extra skills. I mean, there's so few people that have the kind of clearance that my niece's husband has, because he's had to go through all this vetting.
Right.
Isn't your heart just as precious as these secret places that he goes into? And I think, yeah, my heart's worth that. So if you look at it that way, you're just doing your due diligence so that you'll stop having the reasons that have happened in the past that have made you so fearful and overly cautious in a way that isn't helpful. Because that's the other thing I've learned about men. If we are too worried about the world of men, not you specifically, we don't have a reason to be you specifically, but we bring that with us, you're like, wow, that's a lot of energy to get through. That's one thing I think you do have a few things you're sensitive to, and I think that's really one of them. You have a very good spidey sense for, wow, I'm not sure. Wow, that's a lot. You're verifying that, right, with your laughing?
Oh yeah, I've paid the price and learned the lesson more than once over the years. And used it with my clients. So it's one of the gifts I have that way. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, so I just want to underscore what you said, that really valuing yourself enough. I mean, that's what I do with my clients all the time. It's like, I make sure they value themselves, because we have, especially in the modern world with the swipes and dating apps and dating sites and all that sort of stuff, it's easy to be in relationships, easy to date. Doesn't mean it's smart to do that all the time without doing your due diligence, without having the commitment to self that you test and verify and check and do all the pieces to know that what you're choosing matches who you really are. And that you honor yourself in your commitments to relationships, so you can be bringing wisdom to your caution and understanding that you're saying this commitment is for real. No need to be afraid.
Yep.
That is the goal.
Yep. I'm worth it. They're worth it.
Yeah.
And that's really the balance all the time. Is this working for me? What do I need differently to have it work even better? What do I need more of? And then how's it working for them? And to ask, they're like, can I ask? I go, yeah, please ask. Please say, this is what's working for me and something I might need differently, and tell me what's working for you and something you might need differently. What would make you even happier in this relationship? What would make you trust me more? What would make you want to spend more time with me? I know that sounds so scary, but when are you going to ask it if you don't ask it ahead of time? Really?
Yes.
I mean, it's too far down the road, I think, if you haven't asked it early on.
The thing is, we have this bad habit thinking we should know things, therefore we should assume. And the old quote about there's no dumb questions, just dumb assumptions. Very true in relationships. Ask questions. It's okay to ask, not out of any sense of being dumb, but being smart. So definitely be wise about it. Yeah, agreed.
And we can teach you to do that.
Yes, indeed.
This is what we do every day, and we love it. We're so lucky that we get to love what we do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you'd like to talk to me, the way to get a hold of me is through my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. You can sign up for my newsletter, and then you'll get access to all my podcasts. And then you can also sign up to have a complimentary conversation with me by just clicking on what's holding you back from love. You can also send me a personal email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And you can also reach me on my social media. And so on Facebook and LinkedIn and Pinterest, you can find me at Christine Baumgartner or The Perfect Catch. I actually have both. And then if you want to look at my old podcasts on YouTube, it's at Coach Christine Baumgartner. And then on Instagram, it's Coach Christine Baumgartner. So then we move up to Barry, who's much easier. But if you get on my newsletter, they're all listed at the bottom and you can just click on them.
Easy way to do it, yes. So if you want to find out more about me, you can go to my website, which is barryselby.com. Much easier in that sense. And on my website, at the top of the page, you can sign up there for a mini session with me. So you book one if you want to get a test drive of my skills. We find if you want to work together. That's right at the top of the screen, on the top of the half of the screen. At the bottom of the homepage, there is a link to join my email list, the same way as for Christine. And in my email list, I do send out notifications, upcoming things, as well as a replay of our shows every week. So you get to be delivered into your inbox, the replay of our show visually, not just auditorily. On my website is other things too, although those links are going to be put back in. Again, my site's still being rebuilt. It's taking a bit of time. I've got some new things coming, so stay tuned. Definitely get on my email list so you get notified when the new things happen. We'll probably share them here as well. On social media, you can find me on, it's my name, Barry Selby, on all the platforms except for Instagram. Instagram is the real Barry Selby, but otherwise it's simply Barry Selby on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Clubhouse, Pinterest. And I think that's everything. Yeah, and Instagram says the real Barry Selby. And so definitely check us out. We provide lots of insights and comments, notification, that's the word, like posts, that's the word, posts and teachings, as well as this. And yeah, check us out. We do good work, both of us.
And you can also find us on Roku, where you can watch and listen. And then if you want to take us with you to your walking and your gym and your errands, we're now on Apple Podcasts. So you can take us with you wherever you go. We're very portable. And then we're also back here every week on Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific time and 4 o'clock Eastern time, and all the times in between. We love your comments and questions. If you have a question about this episode or a comment about it, or you have a suggestion for an upcoming episode, a topic, we would just love that so much.
And also, we definitely would love to have you subscribe to any of those platforms you listen to or watch us on, because it helps us show up more in the feed for other people. So thank you.
Yeah. The more clicks, the more popular we get to be, huh?
That's what they say, yeah.
Because we are very popular.
With some people, yes. Indeed.
See you next week.
See you next week. Take care of yourselves.
Bye.
Bye.